Welcome, welcome. It's episode 2 of the podcast. If you're watching, you probably already know, but it's called The Plus Size. We're cracking the obesity code. This is episode 2. We are talking about obesity treatment from primary care health providers and a lot about GLP-1 medications and, of course, obesity, how people are leveraging this to save their lives. Our goal of the podcast is to reach others who may be feeling like they struggle with obesity or someone that loves them that they know that they're struggling with obesity and they want to help them, for people not to be afraid or ashamed, for people to know they can go to their doctor because there are treatments. They are not alone. We are all here. There's a massive community. We were born out of TikTok. Believe it or not, all the social media, but TikTok has been the place. So we will talk about Ozempic, Mounjaro, Saxenda, Victoza, lots of different things. Wegovy. So those are the things we're going to cover today. We do have one of our favorite TikTokers that will be on a little bit later. I'll introduce him. But for now, just know that those are the things we're going to talk about. This is meant to be educational. To be clear, disclaimer, this is going to have a lot of medical information. It is by no means information that you should take. You should always talk to your doctor. And disclaimer going forward, we will talk about some sensitive topics, like, for example, eating disorders. So please make sure you don't have any little ears in the room. Thanks so much. Next, Kat. Who are you and who is that stranger behind you?
This is our AT alien. We have to give our AT alien a shout every time because we're from the A. My nails are like janky. I got one nail done. And
don't even talk about it.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's our AT alien. With a Prince credential on here.
Oh, a Prince credential.
Fun
fact.
Credential.
2004. I'm going on a tangent. My only after show I went to, but that was amazing. And I got to see Prince perform till 6 a.m. in Minneapolis.
Wow. That episode of New Girl is one of my favorite episodes.
What'd you say?
That episode of New Girl that has Prince in it is like one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't allow you to freak out yet. You may do so.
You may do so now.
You may do so now.
And Kameen is also a massive Prince fan as well. So another thing to connect us, as well as Atlanta and GLP-1s. So,
yes.
Cool. So Kat, tell us a little bit about you and why you're here and passionate about this.
I've been a fluffy girl all my life, ever since from the womb to now. I have gone up and down. I've always been a sporty girl. I love fitness, and sometimes it did turn into like a binging, purging, where you're over exercise. You exercise 3 times a day because you had a sandwich. It's just a bunch of disordered eating, to make it, in a nutshell. But even when I was on the right track, still always worked. Fitness was always a part of my life. And I think the biggest frustration that I've had with up until now, I felt like I've never been heard by a doctor until, not to say about any generation, but I have a millennial doc and she is the truth. So, the fitness community, which has a lot of disordered eating, but I've finally found like a nice balance. So people always assume that because of my size, because I'm heavy, that I don't work out. I have had people applaud me on my runs, and on one hand, I'm like, thank you. But on the other hand, that is so microaggression-y. And anyway, that's my tangent. And but now finding a GLP-1 like Mounjaro has really helped kind of cut off that food noise, cut off that binge eating disorder. I have white knuckled all the way through life in diet culture, death to diet culture, but death. And so that's it in a nutshell. And Prince.
Cool. Prince rules all.
There you go.
Cool. So awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you're doing, of course, and then also why you're passionate about being a host on this podcast and GLP-1s.
Well, I'm just I'm so excited to be here. And Kim, thank you for the vision of this podcast. And I believe that, you know, GLP-1s brought me to TikTok. Mounjaro brought me to TikTok. Mounjaro brought me, to meet you and to meet Kat. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I just, you know, always had a TikTok account, but I never posted a video because I was afraid. Don't ask me what I was afraid of. I don't know, but I was afraid. And February 3rd, I posted my first TikTok video after being on Mounjaro for a month. And a small little voice said, you need to, share your journey. And I was a little ashamed because I was taking a medication that was helping me regulate my A1C and to help manage my obesity. So yes, I'm type 2 diabetic, and even though I'm not technically obese now, obesity is a chronic disease. So I still have to get obesity managed just like I do my diabetes,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
thank you. Yeah. And I just, came here. I used to be a cheerleader in high school. I used to be a cheerleader in college. I was like 125 pounds. And it just seemed like once I turned 30, my body just did a 180. And it wasn't just the weight. It was I started growing hair like on my chin, and I didn't know at the time that was
Yes,
probably
yes.
PCOS. No one talked about that at the time. Who knew? But I didn't realize that my body was going through hormonal changes. It was going through metabolic changes. And on top of that, I have an autoimmune disease. I suffer from Sjogren's antibody. And
What is that?
so Sjogren's antibody is where you're, in layman's terms, is where if I get too tired, my bones and my joints will start
Mm.
to ache. And I didn't understand what was going on. I would just take Tylenol and I just thought I was just anemic. And that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And I had,
Yeah.
and I still have an autoimmune disease. So if I have an episode, I literally cannot get out of the bed for about 2 to 3 days, depending on how severe it
Yeah.
is. And Mounjaro has actually helped manage my A1C. It has helped to manage my hormones, my, metabolic disorders, my, Sjogren's antibody. It's done so much, even though
Yeah.
the FDA approval is for one thing, it's
Yeah.
helping so many people in other in other, medical areas. So
Yeah.
that's the passion that brought me
Yeah.
here. And,
That's
someone
awesome.
was open with their story. And I'm like, hey, I can be open with mine. You
Ripple.
never know who
Yeah.
you'll affect.
Absolutely. And I think that's super important because there are plenty of people that, I mean, like myself, I was always large and always struggled, but there are plenty of people
Hmm.
who kind of felt like that wasn't something they had to deal with, right? And then things
Yeah.
change. And that, I feel like
Right.
that should be what every episode is called. And then things change,
And
because that's
and
just kind of
then
how it
all of a
works.
sudden it just is never the same. And
Yeah.
you don't understand it. And when we were growing up, especially in our 20s and
Yeah.
teens and 20s, no one talked about PCOS. No one talked
No.
about autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Just wax it off.
Yeah.
Wax off the hair,
Yeah.
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 Hmm. Oh
Mhm.
no. Or why don't you just drink some ginger ale? It'll get
That's
better.
ginger ale's the answer to everything. Yes.
Oh yeah. Or
Yes.
Coca-Cola in the South. They just say drink some Coke.
Coca-Cola or, well, in
Yeah.
the Midwest, some 7-Up.
Drink
Some
more
7-Up.
water. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Ginger ale cures all.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And then I think you had told me once that that there was some genetics in your family for type 2 diabetes, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so I am genetically predisposed to diabetes. My mom is a type 2 diabetic. My maternal grandmother was a type 2 diabetic. My paternal grandmother was a type 2 diabetic.
Yeah.
So it tracks, and it just
Yeah.
makes sense that it would probably be like, hey, Janine, we're here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even though I was doing my best, not to eating clean,
Yeah.
exercising, just getting the visceral fat around
Yeah.
my tummy, that was the telltale sign.
Yeah.
That was the telltale sign.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Just this journey looks different for
Sure.
so many different people, So I
Mhm.
really appreciate that. And like audience going forward, just know the way things are going to be shaped on the podcast is we'll start likely with whatever we think is going on. Maybe there's something in the news, new approval, new haters, new spots, new acquisitions, of something like Weight Watchers, acquiring a telehealth obesity clinic, things like that are a lot of things that are moving targets, if you will, that we
Yeah.
will likely discuss. And then Kat on our next episode will tell us her story a little bit more and a little deeper so everybody can understand, because we want you to know our stories, because if you do relate or you know someone that does, then maybe you will feel less alone and maybe you will realize that there is some help for you. So that's our goal. And then on top of that, we're always going to have some sort of medical professional that knows about these medications and obesity that we're here to be able to back up all of our stories with science, facts, and data. So we hope to change things. We hope to remove the stigma of obesity. We know it takes a lot of time, but we also know marketing and voices and noise are the way to do it. So we hope you're hanging with us. But without further ado, let's invite our guests.
Whiskey.
Woo-hoo.
I'm just kidding.
Who's this? It's Bourbon RX.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about
Let's
it.
talk
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
How are you guys
That
doing?
is why you're here.
Yeah, we're here to talk about it. Anything we want to talk about, let's go.
Yes. Well, it's super great to have you. We're so happy to have you. This, in case you didn't know, which you probably don't, this is Chace Franks. Now, Chance, even though I introduced you very loosely, I'm sure that you can do it a little bit deeper and better than I can. So tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up being a very big TikTok influencer when it comes to obesity and medications.
Come on, Chace, tell us.
Well, that happened by random chance, I'll be honest. So yeah, I'm Chace, by the way. I go by Bourbon RX. And I got on TikTok as a hobby, essentially, just like everyone else. Just aimlessly scrolling, and then I was in the whiskey bourbon world at one point and just kind of got over that. I did it during the pandemic. And then I thought, what am I passionate about? What do I really do? I want to make a difference. And my thoughts were always to represent communities that weren't served well. So whether it be people with obesity, women in medicine, people of color, LGBTQ. And I thought, well, let's just break those topics down. And of course, the first one I thought of was obesity and how people are not treated fairly. And there's a weight bias and fat phobia in medicine. So I thought, hey, let's talk about it. And that's where Let's Talk About It came from while I was just sitting in my house aimlessly thinking. So, but yeah, I'm a nurse practitioner, actually. I'm board certified. This is going to be a lot of words. Adult gerontology, primary care, nurse practitioner. Ooh. Fancy words for I see 13 and above, and I have specialization in 65 and above.
Wow.
Wow. So and but yeah, I mean that's really, and then I just started talking about things from my perspective using the education I have and the knowledge I have, but also from a relatable standpoint, because
that's relatable.
I was raised on a farm in Tennessee. Like I'm no better than anybody else. So I kind of wanted to bring that. I wanted to bring that to TikTok, not that there's anything wrong with wearing a suit and coat and all that stuff, but I just thought the way you see me on TikTok is the way I practice medicine. Like I connect and do all that. And I just thought there was a space that was missing for a normal person. Just so happens to have a degree.
Yeah.
But I want to talk
Highly
about
educated. Highly
but
educated.
Highly.
but I want to, connect and talk to people and make it where, you feel like you can watch it and be like, that's me.
Yeah.
I get those words. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So that's kind of where everything came from.
Yeah.
So,
Well, personally, I love that. And I think that's fantastic because when I started this journey, when I went to my GP, she's the one that brought it to me, and she's a nurse practitioner, and she's given me the best, most, I would say, personable, kind, loving care that I have received ever in my life from a medical professional. And she's made a massive difference in my life. So I think it's really important because here's the thing. There are not a lot of people that are always going to be able to get access to an obesity specialist doctor, but there are plenty out there that understand these medications, and they aren't necessarily doctors. They're nurse practitioners, they're GPs, and that is really, really important because they change lives too. So I think it's cool that you're open like that because honestly, I don't know about you guys, but I had like doctor aversion. Like I in general, I hated going. I was always bad news. They always told me everything was my fault. They always felt like made me feel like I was lazy or stupid or whatever it was. And like, this has been a completely different experience for me. So that's how that's why I've connected with you so much personally. So I hope you're doing really good things for a lot of people.
Yes.
I do appreciate that. And that's my goal, so a little bit more like my background. So I graduated from Vanderbilt University in Nashville.
Okay.
So we saw outside the box cases, the worst of the worst or the weird of the weird. And like,
cool.
I moved to a town, I won't say it's small town, rural. It's like 65,000 people, but there are no obesity specialists in my town. Zero. So my goal was, when I started to practice, was bring like forward thinking and new age treatments and medicine to a small town. Bring Vanderbilt to Owensboro, and so be innovative, and so I think that's where my passion for all these topics came from. I talk a lot about GLP-1s, but like my goal was to learn things that people didn't know in my town. Yeah, that people didn't know. And I think Kat said earlier, like the more like millennial docs and like younger, and I don't want to be ageist. Don't take this as ageist, but like my goal is to be super progressive. And I think, and TikTok has given me a chance. It's been a blessing to bring that to people, to masses. That not everyone you see is going to judge you. Not everyone you see is going to say like you're overweight, so just change that, and all your health problems go away. So
totally.
I mean, it's been super cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, to your point, I mean, you already mentioned there's already kind of, and I think we've seen sort of a deficit of, obesity specialists, or even not even specialists, but maybe even just doctors are comfortable with knowing about obesity, understanding that it's a chronic disease, understanding how it needs to be treated, that it's going to continue to reoccur, likely if you don't. And I think that that's why a lot of us have had a hard time being able to get any help. Like, why do you think that is? What's going on with like the medical system that they're not taking the time to educate around obesity, or maybe traditionally they haven't and they are now? I don't know, but could you give us some insight there?
That's deep. I think,
Sorry.
no, you're good. No, I love it. I think it's just the medical establishment, I think it's the medical establishment. I think that's the way we were, some education is, I remember in my training, like, I was not really taught about obesity, to be 100% honest. Like chronic treatment of it. We were taught like, if you're obese, you're going to have a heart attack and have diabetes. Like, that's it. And so when you get in front of a patient, you just harp on that like crazy. And when, this is recognized by multiple medical associations, WHO, AMA, that obesity is a chronic disease. And I think, like I said, being, more progressive and trying to be innovative, I studied it when I got out. I did not learn that. I did not learn that at school. I did not.
Yeah.
And because, and I say it on my lives, like I'm not an obesity specialist because there's board certifications, but GPs or primary cares, like we have to learn when we get home.
Right.
We do. And, there's journals, and you search it out on Google Scholar, you look up all these things up to date, all these apps we use. And I decided to learn about it myself and looked up the statistics and looked up how many people fail on calories in, calories out. And, and you learn that there's so much to this disease. It's, because a lot of GPs will look at diabetes or congestive heart failure, and they're so complex. And they look at obesity and they're like, you should just eat better. Like it's not it, it's not it. So I just took the time, and like I said, I think it's the medical establishment. I think that's what it is. And this is why I appreciate what you're doing with this podcast, because you guys have voices. We have voices. The only way to make change is to be loud.
Yeah.
And here we are being loud.
That is definitely the goal.
And I love it. I love it.
Yay.
Journey, did you have a question, I think?
Yeah. Well, I always have a question for Bourbon RX, because
Hit me.
It is like rapid fire, but there's controversy around GLP-1 medications being used to, like, quote unquote off label to treat obesity and metabolic disorders. And can you share your take and why you believe, people feel the way that they do about this, even though, like, for instance, Mounjaro is being effective in treating so many different medical conditions? Why is that such an issue?
So let's clarify. Do you think, are you asking about the media, random people on TikTok, or other primary or other medical providers?
All of those things. One by one.
This is good. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe, you know what? How about other medical professionals?
Okay. Yeah. No, I can go with that. Just because they're not progressive. At the end of the day, okay, let's think about it. Like in my practice, I use things off label all the time. Metformin, Topamax, Viagra, all these things, lisinopril, Farxiga. I mean, all these medications, we use them off label all the time. Gabapentin. Gabapentin's a massive one that's used off label. So if just to, like, very generally, it's stigma. It's weight biased and weight stigma, or weight biased, I think would be the best terminology. It's weight biased that these providers think, well, it's FDA approved for that. Well, pardon my French, but you didn't give a shit when you wrote the other stuff.
Yeah.
So why do we care now?
Yeah.
Right.
And I get sometimes they don't want to, providers don't want to write it because it's a lot of legwork if it's not FDA approved to do the PAs and do all these things. But at the end of the day, we write meds off label all the time. And what's interesting, so I always try to practice evidence-based practice. That's what I go by. Okay. You look at the evidence statistically, Ozempic, Wegovy, 16% weight loss. Mounjaro, 21.5 or 22%. Whoa, like we're fixing a problem. I don't care if the FDA says you can do this, because the FDA doesn't control me.
Yeah.
But like statistically and from evidence-based practice, it's there. So To answer your question, I think it's a little weight biased. I think it's again, I don't want to be ageist. I don't want to do that, but I do think it's a little. I think it's an old school mindset versus a new school mindset.
That's okay.
I have to agree.
In medical providers, that's personally what I think, because as you guys talked about when before I jumped on, you said like death to diet culture.
Death to diet culture.
Yeah,
that is the most 1990s. Let's go on the Atkins. Let's do the things, all those diets, and like, and medical providers are so stuck.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. I see it with congestive heart failure meds. I see it with diabetes meds. I see it with, and so now it's just going to obesity, but it's just a little more. It's a little more rigid than most, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. But if I could add, if we add another layer to that, why do you think, especially the diabetic community, feels so, not all, but some members of the diabetic community are so pitted against the obesity community?
That's an interesting one.
These medications.
That's an interesting one. I see the comments all the time. I haven't.
And
really
we do want your perspective. Like don't
we're
getting it from all other professionals on here too. Like, it's okay. Like, tell us what you think.
Look, brace.
I gotta take I need a drink on that one. I don't really know. Actually, I do know. I think it's all driven by the media, personally, because any of us on TikTok have seen Jillian Michaels. We've seen what was it? Good Morning America.
Bethany Frankel.
Bethany, is that skinny girl?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm about to do a video on that. Skinny girl. We've got Good Morning America. It was done on, and all these things. And so I think the media has fueled that because it's clickbait, because people love it. People love chaos. They don't love.
People love a villain.
Yeah, well, they love chaos. They don't love a little puppy. They love the hurricane. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little media driven, and so I don't think no one would ever think about this if it wasn't on Good Morning America, if it wasn't on Jillian Michaels. And from not even a medical provider, from a, I don't know, human standpoint, I get, like, if you go to the pharmacy and you can't get your medicine, you want to blame somebody, because you're pissed, and then you get online and you're like, why is my Ozempic out? And then boom, it's because they're taking it for weight loss. That pops up on Yahoo News. That's why they're pissed. And at the end of the day, I made a video on it the other day. The fact is, it's the pharmaceutical companies not making enough, because there's an Adderall shortage, there's a Tamiflu shortage, there's all these crazy shortages. It has nothing to do with obesity. It's just, I think it's sensationalism in the media.
For sure.
Sensationalism.
Okay.
For sure.
Personally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Oh, that's a good one. I just want to say, Chace, that nurse practitioners are a special place in my heart because my sister is one. She does pediatric oncology, though. So.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah, she did tell me, we talked about Mounjaro a couple of weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, and she was like, yeah, it is such a weight bias in medical and in the medical community. It's like we were taught that when I was in school. My sister's a little bit older than me. She's my big sister. She's the old one. But we're going to get back on track here. But can you explain, so the pains of pre-authorization and why are these insurance companies requiring that? Well, that seems obvious, but I just want to hear from you.
No,
I would say CYA, but yeah.
It's a fantastic question. So prior authorizations, obviously, they are essentially your medical provider providing documentation that says that medication is medically necessary for you. That's what it is. And why are they requiring? Because it's so dang expensive. They don't want to pay for it. They just don't. And so they want us to label or outline rather why these are, appropriate for you, you, and you. They are, if I'm being completely transparent, the worst part of my job.
Yeah.
But it is a necessary evil, because at the end of the day, we take an oath to serve patients, do no harm, help, and at the end of the day, you pay us with co-pays and things like that, and insurance, and just like plumber, electrician, or whoever you want to name, they're required to finish the job.
Yeah.
They don't come in and say, "Hey, you need a light bulb changed or whatever," and then just walk out. They change the single light bulb, or they change the light fixture, and that's I mean, it's a necessary evil, but it happens. We have to do it.
All right, so it's about basically because the drugs right now are so expensive.
Absolutely.
So do you see?
Sorry, I was going to say almost any branded medication, you're going to need one. Almost any.
Okay. Wow. So that puts things into perspective then. So it makes it feel not not so singular, not so isolated. It's not just us. That's other drugs. Other people are going through the same issues, right?
1,000%.
But do you see? I know there's been talks of generics, but is that coming down the pipeline? Do you see generics coming anytime soon or later?
As far as GLP-1 meds?
Yes. Yeah, GLP-1.
Liraglutide or Saxenda. I mean, the patent's pretty much up on that. I think that'll be the first one. Predominantly with patents, they're roughly 10 years from when they start, like R&D and all those things. Now they get expanded by anywhere from 4 months to a year every time they get a new indication.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Yeah.
So like if they get approved for weight loss, it's extended a year from there.
Bingo.
Or 10 years from there. Oh my
Bingo.
gosh.
Yeah. Bingo.
Look, which is why they're doing this. Because they have Ozempic and they're like, oh, let's rebrand it and call it Wegovy, even though it's the exact same medication because the indication is for obesity. OMG.
They got years. Yeah. So like take a medication like Wegovy's perfect. But like say Farxiga, the diabetic medication. So it comes out for diabetes. They got indication for chronic kidney disease. They got indication for congestive heart failure, like all these indications.
Wow.
So it just boom, 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 bumps it back because every time you're like inventing a new drug, essentially, not really, but
it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yes. So when Mounjaro hits that FDA, they get more.
Wow.
They get more.
Wow. I meant to ask, you had a video recently kind of on this topic where you were like, hey, you know how you get upset with your insurance companies and your policies and everything about not covering these medications? Your companies are the ones that are deciding. How much do you know about that? Because I am super curious.
Like, and I use that too. Just FYI, I used that with a friend of mine. I was like, tell your boss. No, not right.
So the majority of the time, so I was corrected on TikTok, which I do get corrected from time to time. So it's if your company has 150 employees or more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a larger company, when they sit down, so there's insurance brokers. So you got your insurance company, so Blue Cross Blue Shield, broker, employer, and so the brokers are trying to sell these plans.
Yeah,
and they'll sell them a plan, and they'll say, well, if you cover weight loss medications or anti-obesity medications, it's going to raise your cost by arbitrary number $10,000 a year. What do you want to do? And if they choose no, you then have a medication carve out. And back to the PAs, when I do these PAs, so I do a PA, I do appeal, peer-to-peer. That's it. I got 4 shots to swing at these meds.
Right.
And if there's a anti-obesity medication carve out, none of those matter. But back to your question, if you work for a larger-ish company, 150 employees or more, they can choose to not cover it.
Wow.
And you're done. You're
What
done.
about for like
there's no way.
diabetes, like other chronic diseases? Can they still choose not to cover certain medications the same way? They cannot. They can't choose that.
There's your weight
Oh,
bias.
gee.
To my knowledge. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
an insurance expert, but to my knowledge, I have never seen like, so in Owensboro, we have a big like industrial, there's lots of factories and like we have like ragu and steel plants and all these things. I have never seen a commercial insurance deny Ozempic or Trulicity for a diabetic. I've never been like, it's not on the plan. Like, I've never seen that.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
So,
do you see that like maybe a little bit of a bubble of hope, a trend where it's starting to make its little peeps?
I do.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm very optimistic. Actually, I'm very optimistic. Because I think a lot of people are waking up to what this is and the future implications if like preventative health versus reactionary health.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal, and like actually the federal government and everybody there's a lot of things about rehospitalizations with congestive heart failure and all these things. Like I think it happened during the Obama era. I think that's starting to kind of hone in to we need to save money down the road and not now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think they're starting to bite. Like I think Wegovy and Saxenda are kind of my thermometer for insurance coverage. And Wegovy and Saxenda is improving each year, but we'll see.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, I feel like and this is just coming from like a marketer. So for those who don't know, I work in product marketing for tech companies, and a lot of my career has been working with startups. So like bringing new drugs to market. And really how this all got started is I made a video about how I thought there was a direct correlation between how they were bringing Mounjaro to market and then basically stealing the underserved base of Ozempic, Wegovy while there was a shortage. And that's why that had that OG coupon we talk about. And so I kind of went off and run off of the mouth of that. But I just see such like similarities there, with how they do things. I mean, it's
it started to. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. But it's very interesting.
It is beyond.
I'm wondering too, like, I think that sort of, I think that I do sort of feel like the tide is turning. I do feel like this class of medication isn't going anywhere. That's just my opinion from what I've seen. Again, I am not a medical professional. I'm in marketing. But it does seem like we just have more and more options, and they're continuing to refine it and perfect it and make it better and better, And so I'm hoping there is. And I also am hoping with this podcast, and we're going to have some people who are heads of diversity, equity, and inclusion to try to talk more about how they can leverage that initiative, right, to be able to treat a disease, a recognized disease, and get certain medications put on their formularies. Like, even if it's step therapy or whatever it is, or like my company is a larger company, but they offer a buy-up plan. And so my buy-up plan allows me to buy up, right, into that level of medication, but not everybody has that, nor can everybody afford that. So we're really hoping that we can put more pressure on, just like you said, like, we shouldn't be denied something that is FDA approved to treat obesity, because if one more person calls it a weight loss drug, I'm going to flip my shit. It's not what it is. Like, no.
Right.
And it's obviously been through clinical trials before it was even.
It is FDA approved. Yes. And if one more person is like, why are you taking that when you should be taking Wegovy? I'm like, dude, because they also make more Wegovy. Like, I can't help what insurance will cover. They cover the Ozempic because it costs less money than the Wegovy, So like, I tell you, every time
drug though.
Every time someone says this skinny shot, and I just like flip my shit.
You still have to
She
work.
does.
Yeah, I do.
Literally, she flips her stuff, and especially when that Skinny Shot documentary came on Hulu, it was like, okay, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And I just wanted to ask, I think we're onto something here, because if Trulicity, Saxenda, their patents are pretty much over, but they've got another usage so they can extend it. We've been talking about, and Kat, Kim, and I are so excited about that triple agonist that's coming retatrutide from Eli Lilly, and then Novo Nordisk also has some other drugs in the pipeline. How do you think those new drugs, especially the triagonists, are going to affect the Ozempics, the Wegovy's, and the
Wow, yeah.
Mounjaros of the world?
I think it'll be negligible. Personally, I think because I have heard that the triple G or the triple agonist, I've heard they're going to market them for weight loss only. You guys can confirm. I don't know if you can confirm it or not because people watch a lot more stuff than I do. But I've heard this triple G is. I like to call it G3. I hate triple G because it makes me think of guys' grocery games. Just to be fair.
Oh my God!
Whatever.
I was thinking of some like action movie with Vin Diesel in it or something.
That's triple X, ding dong.
I know. Dingus.
Triple D, triple G.
But no, I've heard they're going to market it like purely anti-obesity medication, and it's going to go in the same box as Wegovy and Saxenda and all that. So, I think at the end of the day, that the insurance coverage for that has to improve, and these insurance companies have to recognize that it's not vanity. It's a disease, just like diabetes, heart disease, lupus, whatever disease you want to name. And again, like kind of back what I was talking about, it's like it's a cultural shift.
Yeah,
it really is. So hopefully that answers the question. I don't know.
No, I think it does. I mean, I think
jump
in, but I think it does for me anyway. But I think what's interesting about this too, and it would fascinate me if they come to market with that and say it's just for, because if you think about it, they have Trulicity at Eli Lilly. They have Trulicity, they have Mounjaro. They know those treat diabetes really well. They know the market is smaller, but they know the weight loss market, obesity market and metabolic disorders is larger, right? So it would make more sense, and they will likely even charge more money for it. So why continue to do that when you've already kind of got this covered, right? But I'm wondering too, with all of these options coming to market, and I'm sure there's one right behind it that we're probably either just learning about or is going to be coming out soon. I have found, and this is going back to tech, so it doesn't make the same thing in terms of pharmaceuticals, but when there is more competition, people have to work harder to get you, to spend money with them. And that usually drives prices down because it's competitive. So for them to be competitive. So I'm curious what you think about that. Do you think with this class of medicines, with them being as expensive as they are, that maybe having more competition, having more options will maybe make the prices less expensive?
I personally do. Yeah. Competition, perfect example, or what you said, like competition breeds innovation, and innovation usually drives prices down. It's capitalism in the United States, and I think that will be the case. Perfect example was the injections for cholesterol, Repatha and Praluent. They were competing injections that are not statins, and one company was like, we're dropping our prices by 30%. Bang. When they got a competitor. And then insurance started getting it. And, it went from, $400 or $500 to $38 or something like that. Wow. So, I think innovation, it's going to breed innovation and drive down prices because it's capitalism in the United States. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. I'm more positive thinking that way too. I feel like I just think the tide has turned, because if you think about it, we do have, like they've said many times in our community, 20 years of GLP-1 data, right? We know that it works. We pretty much know that it's safe, for the most part, and to be able to use long-term. So I hope that it does. I have more medical questions if you're open for it. I know I didn't prepare you.
Shoot them.
Let's talk about it. Okay.
Let's talk about it. I'm ready to roll. I'm telling you, no. Right now, so y'all caught me at the perfect time. So my house is empty. My wife is in Charleston, South Carolina. It's Masters weekend. It's a great weekend. I got bro time with my dogs. I got nothing to do but talk and watch golf for the next 4 days. So you're fine.
Awesome. So let's
And
talk about
you
this.
are
And then you
in
can
your
put work
heaven.
away for a while.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
pumped. This is literally man heaven this weekend. I'm not gonna lie.
How many?
But
This is so unrelated. How many dogs do you have?
3. I got 2 miniature schnauzers and a 17-year-old urinary incontinent beagle.
That's
Oh my
okay.
goodness. Urinary
Aw.
incontinence.
Oh, poor
No,
He wears
guy.
seriously.
he wears diapers. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
okay.
well,
Yeah.
yes,
All
you never
right.
get away from diapers.
He's the best dog. He's the best dog.
Aw.
You're gonna have bro time. This is great.
Oh, and
So
they're all boy dogs too. So it's like
Oh,
Oh,
they
pure
yeah.
bro
all are.
time.
So you're
Pure
really
bro
bro.
time.
Oh, whoa.
That's hilarious.
Yes. So I got you.
So in terms of things that are going to be happening in June, we have a lot of people in our community that want to be able to continue their medicational treatment, and the access card, right, the coupon card, they're saying will expire. I have a massive prediction with absolutely no knowledge that I think there's going to be a new one, and that the new one is going to let them use Mounjaro so they can keep the base through the end of the year, or at least until they launch whatever the new version is of their weight loss medication. Excuse me, obesity treatment medication, or the new label. That's what I think, because I think capitalism, to your point, would stand to reason that if they spent millions, if not billions of dollars bringing a drug to market to purposely steal the base, right, of underserved from Wegovy or Ozempic, that you don't just let that go in June. Do you know what I'm saying? Now, I don't know about pharmaceuticals, but capitalism, that's what makes sense. Do you have a prediction?
10 of 10. 10 of 10. I will give you my prediction. Yes, they're 10 of 10 going to come up with the card. It's not even a question. Not even a question.
You think so?
Not even a question. Is it going to be 25? 25
No.
gone. 25 will never come back.
The
party's
over. Yeah.
And honestly, like in my career, I've never seen a card like that. In 8 years, I've never. I don't know what the plan was. I don't know what the plan
Nino
was.
Brown type.
I mean, it's a little like
You say Nino Brown.
I said Nino Brown. Yes, it was like New Jack City. They got us hooked. Yes. I'm sorry. There's a lot of ratchet that will creep. Yeah.
Look.
Hey.
Nino Brown.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They got us hooked.
No, well, I mean, I hate to use the word bait and switch.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but I mean, and then what happened was, like, if you listen to the investment calls,
I have.
Their stock just went zoom. And if you invest, like I invested in Eli Lilly, full transparency, Novo. Sure. I do these things because I know what's coming down the pipe. Yeah. And their stocks went zoom. I mean, because if you're giving a $1,200 to $1,400 medicine for $25,
$25,
you're losing S tons of money, not to cuss. You're losing like S tons of money. Yeah. You know, so I think the current card, which is what, like $500 off if it's not covered and $250 if it is. I think they re-up that. I don't think it gets any better because like Wegovy's got that card right now. Farxiga, like all the diabetic medications, they all have that card. Yeah, it gets re-upped. So if you're cool with $775 a month, I think you can probably pay it for the next 5 years.
I'm wondering with that price tag, which is basically a very expensive card payment, if people will roll the dice and try the compound route. We've seen a lot of that in the community of people thinking, you know, so I don't know. Like I hear that a lot because it's sad because we finally found something that really works for us, right? And insurance just hadn't caught up yet, you know, and the system just hadn't caught up yet. And that puts us in a situation where we take more risk so that we can continue our health, you know? So what do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about compound in general? Like, I know that's like super hot seat, but what do you think?
That is hot seat, and I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked because I got all the opinions. Let's talk about it. So let's talk about it. So compounds serve a purpose, in my opinion, and let's even dial it back to like the base level. We're talking, you know, testosterone, estrogen, levothyroxine. Like compounds are not a new thing. They're old school actually. It's the OG pharmacists that were mixing up stuff in their pharmacy. But now, obviously, there is a need, and what's the word? I don't want to use the word desperation, but people. I mean,
I think it's okay to use. Yeah.
I
hate the word that
might fit on this one.
I do.
Yeah,
we just said Nino Brown. I'm sorry, just do the desperation.
I hate to use that word, but like people are desperate to continue this journey, and so they're looking for options. And like if you get on Google and you can be like, compound tirzepatide or compound semaglutide, you get tons of things that pop up. And you can get them for $250, $300, $400 a month, which is better than $750. Honestly,
it makes me think if they were to have a card that was competitive, like around the 250, 300, people would probably pay that more than they would go to compound. I bet.
Boom!
I bet they could compete at that price tag. People would find a way.
Don't give them ammunition.
People would find a way, but I know that I'm on the new savings card, so my company covers Mounjaro and Ozempic and Wegovy with a PA. However, I still just pay $25, even for a 90-day supply, and that's through the end of the year. So so normally our copay for one box of Mounjaro is $75. If we do a 90-day supply through the pharmacy benefit company, then it would be $175. So I think you get like a $50 discount where you're almost getting a box free. But here's the kicker. Ozempic and Wegovy are more expensive than Mounjaro.
My gosh.
On our plan. Right. Make that make sense. So, and they said that for our benefit, they don't cover weight loss medication. So you have to almost find a comorbidity to justify.
Because they keep calling them weight loss medications.
Correct.
It's in the wrong class. Like it's driving me bananas.
That makes me think of also like with me, because I've always been active. So I'm active. I work out a lot, like moving. And do I have to stop and give myself like high blood pressure? A couple of good meals so I get coverage, like
seriously.
I have
we can go to Houston.
Type 2 diabetic in a month. I mean, it's like it's sad.
Unfortunately, I have seen providers recommend that people increase their calories and sugars to get their A1C to 6.5. You hit that 6.5, it's over. I mean, I can get it covered. Like
it's a done deal.
Well, I got it covered. I got it covered for an actual a diabetic at 6.5 for 3 years. The PA for Mounjaro was good for 3 years, and I mean, I've seen providers do that, and I think I don't know. Me and my wife. So my wife's a doctor, and like we talk, and I was like, I can't see me telling my patients to worsen their health to do this.
Yeah, that's the do no harm thing that you were talking about earlier.
I said I can't. It was a wine night, so we're sitting there talking, and I was just like, I can't. And she was like, but 6.5, like there's little to no damage that's done to the body. But if you roll on Mounjaro and Ozempic at 6.5, like, are we saving them 20 years from now? And I was like, that's the kind of conversations me and my wife have. Like, they're deep. And I'm like,
that's some deep shit, man. Like,
I'm like, whoa.
That's like super deep.
I'm like, you're right. Holy shit. I was like, what? Do I need to think about what I tell my patients? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I was like, I literally cannot tell people to eat more sugar and gain weight and get it to 6.5 just so I can reverse it. I was like, that's weird. Yeah. She's like, but you're sacrificing short-term for long-term. And I was like, God dang. She was like, but I see your point. I see your point too, because again, you say do no harm. So that's the weird, that's the weird position. Like healthcare providers,
too, that's for sure.
That's what we're put in right now. And I think it's like a risk versus benefit, like calculation. And it's, I cannot come up with a formula to get the answer currently. So, but back, I don't think I actually answered your question. I slightly answered your question about compound. I do want to talk about that if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
If you don't
because
mind.
I know our listeners want to know. I know.
Yeah.
They want different perspectives. There's not enough out there about it. So
and it's a hot topic, and I totally agree. And again, desperation is driving people here, and even to break it down even less, lack of access is driving people there.
Yeah.
When it comes to compounds, they can be good and they can be bad. I think we live in a black and white society where they think everything's bad or everything's good. There are several compound pharmacies that are awful because they're doing research grade products like tirzepatide and semaglutide, tirzepatide or liraglutide. Sorry. But if you are considering compounds, and listen to this if you're listening, ask that provider. I don't care if it's one off TikTok or one you Googled. What pharmacy do you get your compounds from?
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's like literally like 75 in the United States, probably more, but like 75 that I know of. And some of these pharmacies have what's called PCAB certifications, PCAB, and other certifications. They are monitored by the FDA. So they come in and they look at sterility, efficacy, and sustainability, I think. And if they have these PCAB certifications, PCAB, you can be assured that the FDA is watching to say, are you using research grade products? They won't let them do it. Is your ventilation appropriate? Do they like randomly test samples to make sure their stuff is good? But there's some that you can find on Google. Like I found one, it actually popped up on my Facebook, and it was like, if you read the fine print, it was like research grade, not used for human consumption. Don't do that shit. Don't do that shit.
Don't do that
shit.
Yeah.
Don't do that shit. There's also like in my comments, I see these people that get sent semaglutide salts and they mix them up at their house and inject them.
No.
Oh gosh.
Again, I say, don't do that shit.
Don't do shit.
Don't do that shit.
Like apothecary, or back in the day, apothecaries.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, so like you can get actual recognized pharmacies that are have FDA oversight.
Okay.
No compound you ever get will be FDA approved. I don't care if it's testosterone, estrogen, levothyroxine, a foot cream for your plantar fasciitis. It is not FDA approved.
Yeah.
But it can be FDA monitored. Key. So like, am I against compounds? Absolutely not. I think they serve their purpose for accessibility and affordability in times of shortage. But I just want, again, everybody listening, like, do your due diligence, find a good reputable pharmacy, and do not be scared to ask that provider that's prescribing it to you, what pharmacy do you use and what certifications do they have?
That's right.
Yeah.
Boom.
That goes back to advocacy and even advocating for yourself, which we've talked about quite a bit.
10 of 10.
So, yeah,
10 of
like
10.
you have to be like, especially if you're spending money with them, you should know what you're putting in your body.
Absolutely. Especially if you're injecting it. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Well,
awesome. We're about at an hour. Does anybody have any more questions, or we feel good wrapping up?
Well, really quick, Bourbon
Good
RX.
for whatever. Yeah.
You did a post about it. What are your thoughts on the statement that Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk and other drug makers put out about compounds?
Being okay, yeah. Saying they they're patented and can't get it from anywhere else. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people that are not educated on laws. 503A, 503A, 503B allows compounding pharmacies to make products in times of FDA shortage, so the supply is not interrupted for patient treatment.
Okay.
That's how they get around that. And people be like, "Oh, do they add B12 to change the molecule?" Yeah, a lot of them do. Because it's very specific. It's there's laws and lawyers and all these things that come into play. But 503A, 503B, those are what these FDA compliant pharmacies go by. So what's going to happen if these shortages come off the FDA list that everybody can Google? The legitimate pharmacies will stop selling that. They'll stop. They usually have. So a lot of these pharmacies have 3 to 4 months already done. So when those come off, you have 3 to 4 months for compounds, and then it's gone.
Wow.
It's gone. And then if you see someone that is like, I'll give you a year supply after FDA is gone, don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah. Okay. The thing is, people really need to, like, I am a proponent of compounds because I think they're great, but you have to be safe. You have to be knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a good idea to ask your physician or your whoever's taking care of you medically, like if they have one that they feel good about and to recommend?
I think it's a good idea. I think it's very rare that they're going to know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
It's very rare. I only know the answers because I'm looking for options for patients. And so I'm like vetting things, as you've seen on TikTok, like I'm a medical advisor with IVM Health. And before I even signed on to work with them, I talked to the CEO, the chief medical officer, like, where are you getting these things? Why do you believe in them? What do they have? Why is it safe? Why is it not safe? Et cetera. Like, what is your vetting process? And they walked me through the whole thing, sent me files, and I read through all of them, because I will never recommend things that I think might potentially harm people.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So, yeah.
That's really good to know. You got to be able to sleep at night. That's for sure.
10 of 10. I mean, we have people's lives. We have people's lives in our hands,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So,
yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I'm so glad you could come on episode 2. You give us some really good information. I know that our audience is really going to love that. Is there anything you want to say? We talked about all the things. So you got anything else? It's time for sign-offs. We all have one.
I mean, not really. Like I said, like I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think this is good for, advocacy and education. I appreciate that. At the end of the day, that was my goal with Bourbon RX. I saw a need, and I like to give a voice to people that don't have a voice in medicine. And I think I'm blessed to have that platform.
It's awesome.
It's just a cool, and I actually enjoy it too. But
it's a good time.
It's a cool time to talk to. And my hope is that hopefully other doctors or PAs or NPs or pharmacists or insurance people see that thing and are like, maybe he's got a little bit of a point. So Bourbon RX, follow me on TikTok if you feel the need. I keep it pretty real, and
are you on any other platforms that we need to know about in case we use our precious TikTok?
I do Clapper. I
just started Clapper.
Yeah, Clapper. I hate the name. It's the worst name in the world, but
That's what you think of the clap on.
Yeah,
I got a Clapper account. I really don't do anything else. I've got a Facebook and Instagram, but like my Instagram's personal. Like I don't really. I just kind of popped on TikTok in the middle of pandemic. So I mean, follow me, and we'll keep talking. We'll
All right, cool.
talk about it.
Awesome.
We'll talk about
Talk
it.
about
Thanks
it.
so much for being vulnerable and giving this information for everybody, because I know some of them are hot seat questions, so we really appreciate it.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, have a great one.
Have a
And
great
thanks
one.
for
Yeah,
coming.
it was exciting.
Thanks
Thank
for freaking
you,
learning.
Talk to you.
Urban RX.
Bye. Well, that was awesome. He's so
That
fun.
was awesome.
Is he still here? Or he left us? Did he go bye-bye?
He's fun. Yeah.
Are you bye?
I think
Are you
that he's
bye?
gone.
Are you gone?
Yeah. Yeah, he's so great. Yeah. So I think that was a really good episode. I hope everybody likes it. We went over a little bit. We've got some really good answers, you know. So
It is a lot of
Thank you for
information.
letting me ask like an additional question.
yeah,
but
for sure.
I
This is
just-
supposed to help people. That's
That's
what we
great.
want, you know?
You know,
I'm sorry I got a
We
little
have no
ratchet,
bosses.
but
We can ask what we want, you know, it's okay.
oh, we love Ratchet, girl. Look,
I was like, that's all I could think of. I was like, Nino Brown, you're gonna be like damn Chris Rock. And just,
be like, hey.
I mean,
Hey.
the similarities are there. Like you got them hooked on the rocks. So
Yeah.
The Rocks, yeah. Oh, okay. Can you believe that we've recorded 2 episodes in one day?
No.
they were fun.
We did it.
They were.
The first one, it was a little nerve-wracking, but
Yeah, but this one was super fun and
About
chill.
halfway in, I
Amazing
was like,
energy.
let's just
Yeah.
chill.
Awesome. All right. Well, then we're gonna do our classic sign-offs. Kat, you go first.
Live by Katharine Hepburn isms, which
Yeah.
is don't ever quit, always be yourself, and never too much flour in your brownies.
Great.
There you go.
Janine.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Indeed. That's so true. And mine is to know, like what I said in the beginning, that this is not your fault. There is medical help. It is worth talking to your doctor, even if you have to go to a couple and even if you've got to fire the one you've got. But
Right.
just know you are not alone. It is not your fault.
No.
And there are answers, and we are here for you. Our community is open. Please feel free to follow us on TikTok or continue to listen to this podcast and support it. And we love you guys. We always will, because we'll understand your pain and we'll understand your joy once you start feeling better.
Yep.
All right.
We're having fun.
Thanks so
And let's
much.
have fun while we're doing it.
I know.
Yes, let's do
Let's get to know each other.
Awesome.
And the AT alien.
AT alien.
Bye, everybody. See you next time.